What's up guys, Tim Little. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today, we are talking Texas rigs. A super universal bait. It doesn't matter if you're a bank fisherman, a pond fisherman, got a bass boat, you're out on the biggest of Great Lakes. A Texas rig is a bait that you need to be throwing, and today I'm gonna cover baits, hooks, weights, how to rig them, so let's go. All right, so the Texas rig, you know, that was probably one of my first baits that I ever started fishing with. Like I said in the intro, super universal. A Texas rig, all it is a weedless bait. It could have a weight, it could not have a weight. A Texas rig is simply a rig where the hook, rig this for you guys, where the hook goes through the face of the bait. Doesn't matter what soft plastic it is. So right here we got an EWG hook and a stick bait. A Texas rig, you bring the bait down through the head, poke it out, pull it down, rotate it on itself, and feed it back into the belly of the bait. That right there is a Texas rig. You guys can see, you can actually Texpose it and put the bait back over the hook to cover the point, but you can see how weedless that is. You can add a weight, like I said. You can flip, pitch, punch with it. Again, super universal. If you guys are heading out fishing and you guys are struggling to put fish in the net, get them to shore, you know, in your belly boat, whatever it may be, think about throwing a Texas rig. A Texas rig can be any of your favorite soft plastics, and I'm gonna give you a handful of mine. I got them broken down into worms, creature baits, and flipping and punching baits. So I should have the whole gamut covered for you, the hooks, the weights, everything. So starting off, now that you know what a Texas rig is, you know, it can be a little confusing with A rigs and Carolina rigs and all that sort of stuff, but a Texas rig bait, again, a Texas rig setup is just a weedless bait with the hook rigged back into itself. I showed you the weighted version. I showed you the weedless version. If you guys have kids and you just want to go out to the local park or the pond, something like that, super easy, you guys, this setup right here is a must-have. So this setup right here, I simply have a 3/16 ounce slider with a 1/0 EWG hook. Again, came through the face and then simply rigged it back into itself. These mosquitoes are ridiculous. Might be a shorter video than normal. But this little setup right here, this is a 7-inch power worm. Again, 3/16 head and a little 1/0 EWG hook. The benefit of a Texas rig is weedless, weedless, weedless. I cannot stress that enough. That is the benefit of the Texas rig. You don't have an exposed hook. So if you're fishing ponds or you're fishing grass flats or you're fishing wherever you're getting hung up and you want to limit the amount of time that you're hung up, the amount of time that you're pulling grass off your hook, Texas rig. So this little setup right here, again, fire it out there at your parks, your ponds, your lakes, whatever you're fishing, fire it out there, let it hit bottom, and just kind of drag. One thing you guys will find in common with all of the worms that I'm gonna recommend is they're gonna have action on the tail. Most of them aren't gonna be a straight tail worm like a robo worm or a stick bait. It's usually gonna have some kind of ribbon tail or some kind of cut into it like a speed worm to give action to that tail. So as you drag it or you swim it, it's got a little kicking action and it just gets those more aggressive fish to eat. But this little guy right here, that is a 7-inch power worm. That is money. Again, you could throw it on 6-pound test, spinning rod, easy, simple, and it will catch a lot of fish. Sticking to the same type of setup, right here I have a Zoom speed worm. Again, straight worm with a little notched tail. That's gonna give a real tight kicking action, almost like a swim bait. So if you're not dragging it on the bottom and you pop it up or you swim it through that grass, it pops up, that tail's gonna kick and give that worm a lot of action. The difference with this setup, you can see, I have a sinker. This is actually a 3/16 ounce tungsten sinker, but I have a bobber stop on it. What a bobber stop does, it keeps that weight from sliding all the way down your line. We've done videos in the past on if you should peg or not to peg. Simply put, finesse fishing, I usually don't peg because I want that weight, the weight's gonna fall first. Bait's gonna go down to bottom, the weight's gonna go down to bottom, the bait's gonna slowly fall. But in this setup right here, I want that weight connected to the bait. It's gonna get through that grass, through that structure cover, whatever I'm fishing as one single bait, and then I can fish it with that head connected, that weighted head connected through the grass, and it's gonna be more reactive through that stuff. So when I get hung up, I pop it, it's gonna rip right through it and swim down, rip right through it and swim down. Whereas an unweighted or unpegged bait, it's gonna be less reactive. But again, this little guy right here, the Zoom speed worm, is something you can fire out there and fish it a little faster than a traditional stick bait or just a straight tailed bait. A few other worms that I wanna talk about in the worm category. I got 4 or 5 of them here for you. We talked about the Zoom, the speed worm. I want to talk about the Strike King cutter worm. Again, it's a bait that has a kicker tail on it. Look at that guy right there. That thing's gonna be back there kicking. So you can fish this thing as slow as you want and it's still gonna have a little action, and you can burn this thing and get a real reactive bite out of those fish. But this is another good Texas rig worm bait. I showed you the 7-inch power. Now here's the 10-inch power. If you guys are night fishing or if you guys are going for bigger fish, upsize your weight if you want. You know, go with something like a 1/2 ounce and then throw on a 10-inch power worm. Again, ribbon tail, it's gonna have a lot more action, a lot bigger profile, a lot more movement. It's gonna draw bigger bites. And the last one I wanna talk about is gonna be this guy right here. This is the bull worm from Strike King. This comes in an 8 and a 10, I believe. This is actually the 8. Flat on the bottom, but you can see it's got the bubble tail right here. Again, more action. So fire that out there on your rock pile, fire it out there from shore, wherever you're fishing, and just drag this one. This one's not gonna kick like the others, but it's gonna give some action with this tail right here. The bull worm is another good, great Texas rig worm. So that's worms. Now let's jump into creature baits. Again, you guys, this is a weedless presentation. You can use your favorite straight shank hooks, your favorite EWG style hooks. Again, we've done videos in the past. I will link to it up here where Matt and I have talked about our favorites for each technique. So I'll put a link to that video up here. You guys can go check that out. But jumping into creature baits. These are gonna be more of your dragging baits. So a must-have is gonna be the Zoom brush hog. You know, this is a very big creature bait compared to some of the other creatures in that lineup. You know, here it is next to the game hog. Same profile, just a lot, or same type of bait, just a lot smaller profile. This does come in a baby brush hog, which is another great bait. But let's see if I have one of these rigged up for you. These mosquitoes are eating me alive. Okay, so fishing stuff back here. Like if I'm punching or if I'm pitching to toolies, I'm gonna want my weight pegged, because I'm gonna want that to get through the cover, through those toolies, the grass, whatever it may be, as quickly as possible. But if I'm firing out and I'm fishing open water, typically I'm gonna throw an unpegged weight. Again, it's gonna let that weight get down to the bottom quicker, and this bait is gonna slow fall down there just a real subtle fall. The only thing that's bringing it down is the weight of the hook. Real subtle fall, and you can get those more finicky fish to eat. Once it's down on bottom, you're gonna start that drag. And again, just like the worms, I'm gonna go with baits, especially these creature baits that have appendages and tentacles on them to add movement to the bait. So this is actually a man-bear pig by Reaction Innovations. Kind of like the brush hog, just a little bit different, kind of different profile. So I'm gonna fire this out, open water, rock pile, ledge, whatever it may be. You know, you bank fishermen or you pond fishermen, the deepest part of your pond, maybe the riprap on the dam or a deep hole, something like that. And I'm gonna drag it down. And those tentacles are gonna be down there just every little, you know, shake or tug. Those tentacles are gonna be dancing and give that bait some real good action. Again, this is more of a dragging style technique. Some of my other favorites in the creature category, I already talked about the brush hog, the baby brush hog. I talked about the game hog. I really like the game hog and the man-bear pig. It's just this little guy right here, the one that I have rigged up, it's just a fish catching machine. That's the man-bear pig. Great colors. Reaction Innovations has great colors, but that is a bait you guys should check out. All right, kind of flying through this, but again, my feet and legs are getting eaten alive by these mosquitoes. Always bring bug spray out on the boat. The last category that I want to talk about, guys, is gonna be the flipping, pitching, punching category. That right there is an 1.75 ounce tungsten weight. I have 2 bobber stops on 65-pound braid, a 5/0 jungle hook by Owner, and a Jackal Archelon. This is gonna be the punch category. Get that mosquito off of the lens. This is gonna be your heavy structure, heavy cover Texas rig baits. When you wanna catch the fish that are 8, 10, 12 feet back in those tulies, you wanna flip this or pitch this 1.75 ounce bait through the tulies and down. Those fish are sitting back underneath there. You know, that water goes back 8, 10, 12 feet. Those fish are sitting back underneath there in the shade. So you need something heavy, something that's a narrow profile to get down through that, get through the cover so those fish can eat. So this category is gonna be the punching category. That right there is one of my new favorite baits. Matt's done a lot of talking about this. That is the Jackal Archelon. What makes this bait different is it's hollow on the inside, so you get a lot better hook penetration. You don't have to get through as much plastic to get that hook buried in the roof of the mouth. But again, that is a must-have pitching bait, flipping bait, punching bait. My other favorites, this guy right here. You guys can see I have them in Ziplocs because I buy them in bulk. This is gonna be the D-Bomb. Another kind of a craw profile, real slender at the front, comes through cover really well. That is a phenomenal bait. The bait we've all grown up fishing, the Reaction Innovations Sweet Beaver. You can see kind of the similarities in the profile. Again, with these guys, always tear the tentacles apart. If you're throwing a bigger heavy weight, you can actually cut off the first 2 of these, first 2 little sections of the bait, and it'll be a more even profile with that tungsten weight. Dude, I am trying to get through this. That man-bear pig that I talked about earlier in the creature bait, that is an awesome flip bait too. So don't be afraid to double up on those. And then the last bait that I want to talk about, this is going to be a bait that has a lot of action. You know, these 2 baits that I first showed you, I mean, they have appendages and tentacles, but they don't have a lot of kicking action like in those speed worms. This bait right here, this is actually the Strike King Rage Craw, and it has little wedges on each of these tentacles. So as it's falling, it's kicking really fast. So this is something that you can Texas rig in open water on the back, you know, of your favorite, you know, whatever setup you want, your favorite tungsten or straight shanked hook, whatever it may be, or the punching thing. You know, this is another good bait to punch through this stuff because it's aggressive. When it falls fast, those tentacles are flapping, and this is another fish producer for me, so check that bait out. So what style of hooks? To keep it simple, I don't know, it's totally up to you. You know, the two styles that I will recommend is gonna be an EWG style hook, right there. You know, Owner makes great ones, Gamakatsu has them, Trokar. We'll link all that stuff down below in the video description. You know, Matt and I were our favorite hooks and weight sizes for each of the categories that I talked about. But if I could only recommend one that would cover all of these besides the really small finesse stuff, it would be a 3/0 or a 4/0 EWG Superline hook. This guy right here, you know, that'll fish in a 5-inch senko, 6-inch senko, all of your creature baits, all of your flip baits. That guy right there is the most used, most universal for me and Matt probably out of all these hooks. But again, you can go straight shank. The difference with a straight shank, there's not that little kink at the eye, so you're gonna have a different hook angle, and you'll get more hook penetration, but you'll get snagged up easier. As far as weights, if you can afford it, go tungsten. If not, go lead. You know, this is a sport for everybody. You don't have to have the nicest gear. Yeah, some of the biggest bass I ever caught were caught on lead weights and cheap plastics. So whatever you guys can afford, fish that terminal tackle. So lead weights, tungsten weights if you can afford it. The benefit of tungsten, obviously, it weighs more than lead, so you get a lot smaller profile at the same weights as lead, and you get a lot more feel because it's a denser material. The last thing that you'll need is some bobber stops. You know, if you guys are punching, you'll definitely want to throw 1 or 2 bobber stops on before your weight. If you guys are finesse fishing, you don't need them. If you guys are fishing the speed worms or something that's going to be more of reactive and you want that bait to be more reactive every time you pop it or reel twitch it, peg the weight to the head. You guys, I flew through this. My legs are burning up. If you guys have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. But Texas rigs, it's a bait you need to throw it. If you guys have been fishing for a long time, I guarantee you've thrown it. It's probably one of the baits you started throwing when you were a kid. If you guys are just getting into fishing, look up these baits. I'm gonna link them down below in the video description. It'll give you guys a head start on the things that you need to catch more fish. Guys, I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, leave those down below in the comments section. We appreciate you guys. If you guys like this video or learned something, give us a thumbs up. We're doing 3 videos a week for you, suffering through malaria, but we appreciate all you guys. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a good night.